Welcome back to the channel and beautiful sunny day in this field. Now, if you do not know, I'm a composite laminator, aka I work with carbon fiber, which means I get to build these Formula One cars. In this video, I'm going to talk about how does the current UK economy, which is in decline, affect directly Formula One teams. This is all entirely my speculation, so let me know in the comments below your thoughts, whether you're a laminator and a trimmer in the industry. How does this affect you directly? And I would love to know your thoughts. Now, first of all, let's talk about the budget caps and the rising cost of materials. This, of course, directly impacts Formula One teams, and it puts a stress on the budget. Not just when it comes to importing the material, but also importing the labour and high-skilled labour. Look, it's no secret the cost of living in this country is skyrocketed in the last, recent years, of course. This, of course, puts the stress on when it comes to people, high-skilled labour getting employed by these teams and the sort of money they have to make in order to counteract for these high cost of livings in this country, basically. Of course, this does mean that the budget caps no longer stretch as far as they used to a few years ago when this was first introduced. So really the only solution, as far as I know, is either for Formula One to keep increasing its budget caps to keep up with the inflation and the current cost of living, or they're going to have to downsize with some of these F1 teams, maybe potentially bring in AI and automation, which is something that, of course, is fresh in our mind with the current change of working environment and conditions around the world, not just in the UK. Now, high-skilled workers, I would also love to know your opinions. If you're a composite laminator or a trimmer, I have seen a lot of comments on various different pages or websites or groups where a lot of contractors, for example, which are now have been hit by a lot of policies which affect how much you earn as a contractor, have switched over to being PAYE because essentially their money no longer stretches as far as it used to 10 or even 15 years ago in the industry, from what I've heard from a lot of skilled laminators, for example. So let me know in the comments what your thoughts are and how you've been directly affected by this and what you think the future of the industry, not only in this country, but globally, it looks like. Now, let's talk about the budget. And the first things that I understand in a lot of companies that are cut first is the marketing. And of course, if you start cutting marketing, you're going to have less sponsorship because you're going to have less opportunities for these companies who invest money to have, logo on your car being marketed and shown around the world, and there's less exposure and less eyes. Which, look, it's not going to directly impact companies such as Mercedes, which are sort of backed by the, automobile company of Mercedes, which produces these cars, as much as it's going to affect these small little teams and slightly smaller teams which don't rely on their products being sold worldwide. Now, obviously, when it comes to these smaller companies, these smaller F1 teams, of course, they're going to be affected a little bit more when it comes to the marketing being cut, essentially, because the sponsors will not be shown on a car as much as they would in other, obviously, larger teams. And of course, they can rely on the amount of cars, for example, they sell to general public. So again, I do wonder what the solutions are for these budget caps and whether Formula One is going to keep raising them in order to counteract the inflation and in order to counteract the cost of living, essentially, and how many people are employed by these teams. Because we've seen in recent years that a lot of these Formula One teams have reached upwards of nearly 1,000 people, and is that really viable in a modern day economy? I do still wonder. I wonder, speculatively, of course, whether having a HQ headquarters in the UK, which is, of course, where most of Formula One teams are based. If you don't know, 7 out of 10 Formula One teams are based in the UK, with an exception of Ferrari, of course, Sauber Audi, which is in Switzerland, and AlphaTauri, Toro Rosso, Vicarb, whatever you'd like to call them. For me, they're the iconic Toro Rosso, which is the name originally given to the team. Of course, since these teams are based in the UK, and there's always been speculation, as of recently, of course, Cadillac is another team who's joined the sport and who's set up a headquarters in the UK. I do wonder whether going long term, a lot of these teams are going to reconsider the HQ being in the UK, and other teams potentially joining the sport in the future are going to consider about where and which country has a better economic prospect for the HQ to be placed. Now, of course, I understand this is also logistics, not only economy, because Formula One does work a lot more off of its own echo chamber of economy. It isn't tied to the global economy as much as a lot of other industries are, but it still does get affected. Now, let's talk about the currency exchange rates. That's another thing which we have to cover, of course. As we know, pound has been drastically falling in the recent years since the world turmoil has occurred in the last 3-4 years, and that does mean that, of course, the teams which operate in Great British pounds will no longer be able to have that currency stretch as far compared to euros or dollars when it comes to, again, getting in skilled labour or getting in materials imported from other countries. Of course, again, this is going to have to be either counteracted by Formula One raising the budget caps or by downsizing in a way. And I do wonder, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. As I've already mentioned, this is just speculation, but I would love to know your thoughts and share this with you. The other thing is the rising cost of materials. I mean, look, a few years ago when these budget caps were introduced, before any of this, the current turmoil going on around the world, I shall say, has happened. These budget caps were perfect for bringing in the imported materials such as carbon fibers, etc. Where if we look at the current economy now, everything has massively and drastically increased in price, including the import of any sort of materials to the UK, really. And again, I assume this will directly impact the budget caps, and the teams are going to have to find some legal loopholes around this in order to make the most out of these budget caps, or Formula One is going to have to keep increasing these budget caps so that they keep up with the current economies. Now, of course, these profit margins are going to be another thing that's going to be affected, and smaller Formula One teams which can rely on their automobiles being sold through, you know, to general public through the factories, like Mercedes, like Aston Martin, for example, they're going to be affected a lot more. And especially when it comes to, this is something that I've been thinking about for a while, the proposed idea of wealth tax in a country proposed by the Labour government, essentially. I wonder if that's going to affect and how that's going to affect these Formula One teams. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Again, this is just me speculating, but I would love to just be very open with this. I mean, there's nothing to hide. We all work in the industry and our jobs are affected. I think all of us are directly affected by the current global economy. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Also, just a little side note, I'm back from my holiday now. Of course, I've taken a little break. If you would like to see a little bit more of my personal private life, you can check out the YouTube shorts on my YouTube channel, where I'm going to be posting a little bit more from my holiday. And yeah, that's it. I hope you liked the video. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Like the video if you liked it, and I'll see you guys in the next one.